Hello, I'm Jack Fink, and you're watching Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas. For the second week now, the abortion issue is making headlines in Texas and nationwide. A federal judge in Amarillo is now considering whether to restrict the sale of the abortion pill mifepristone or ban it altogether nationwide. It's part of a civil lawsuit filed against the Biden administration by anti-abortion rights groups who say the medication is unsafe. But abortion rights groups insist it is safe and point to the fact that the FDA approved the medication 23 years ago. Abortion rights advocate and former state senator Wendy Davis sharply criticized the civil lawsuit that's being heard at the Amarillo federal courthouse.
These anti-abortion zealots are not going to stop at anything until they have removed the right to bodily autonomy and to access reproductive health care by people in every state in this country.
Texas-based Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine and other anti-abortion rights groups filed suit against the Biden administration, saying the abortion pill mifepristone isn't safe, and they say the FDA's policy allowing the distribution of the drug through the mail is wrong. They want the drug banned nationwide.
If the Biden administration wants to continue to push for abortion on demand, wants to sidestep the process, wants to ignore legitimate concerns, women and young ladies are going to suffer. And that's what we don't want to see happen, particularly in the state of Texas.
On Monday, Vice President Kamala Harris rejected the lawsuit, calling it, quote, an unprecedented attack on medication. These attacks are not only an attack on woman's fundamental freedom to make decisions about her own body, but it fundamentally is also an attack on the scientific process that is crucial for public health. Under Texas law, abortion pills can't be distributed through the mail, and women aren't allowed to use it past their 7th week of pregnancy. Attorney General Ken Paxton has warned the major chain stores not to send the drugs through the mail. We asked U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary about this issue during a stop in Dallas last month.
We will fight tooth and nail to make sure, whether in court, in Congress, or in public opinion, we make it clear. Every American, every woman in this country has the right to have access to health care.
We should be able to take a look at this on our own and decide what's best, not having the federal government dictate these issues.
The judge said he will issue his ruling as soon as possible. Also this week, a Texas House committee held a hearing on a bill that would extend Medicaid, the health care program for the poor, from 2 months to 1 year for mothers who gave birth. It's a priority bill for the House and has bipartisan support and support from businesses, medical, and right-to-life groups.
I have a 2-year-old girl.
Patrice Lott welcomed the birth of her daughter Camila Joy in 2020 and credits her Medicaid health coverage for helping her to deliver a healthy baby.
That would not have been able to take place if I couldn't, go to the doctors.
But during an earlier pregnancy in 2019, Lott suddenly went to the hospital and learned from doctors she was suffering a miscarriage. After that happened, she could only remain on Medicaid for 2 months.
Once I finished my doctor's visits, it was pretty much right at 2 months, and I was scavenging a little bit around trying to figure out where I could go and who I could see.
Now she supports House Bill 12 that would extend Medicaid coverage from 2 months to 12 months for women after they give birth or have an involuntary miscarriage. She testified at a Texas House hearing. Democratic State Representative Tony Rose of Dallas wrote the bill.
We're demanding that they have babies. We should demand that they have the care that they need to deliver these babies and take care of their bodies and have the comprehensive health care they need after the delivery.
A state report on maternal mortality released in December found there were 52 pregnancy-related deaths in 2019, and that of those, 47 deaths, or 90%, were preventable. Among its recommendations, increasing access to comprehensive health services the year after pregnancy.
What we're trying to do is decrease the number of deaths of women in Texas.
While the group Texas Right to Life backs the idea, they want to change the bill's language.
But we do not want to incentivize anyone to have an abortion, a legal abortion, in elective abortion in another state.
As for Patrice Lott, she hopes lawmakers pass the bill.
the least that we can do is give them health care coverage so that if something does go wrong and an emergency does happen, they're not at home trying to take care of themselves.
Republican State Representative Charlie Garen of Fort Worth has filed a bill that would eliminate the Tarrant Appraisal District and instead turn over its management to the Texas Comptroller's Office. And the appraisal district's chief appraiser could soon lose his job.
There's been a lot of controversy over the Tarrant Appraisal District.
Citing what seems to be a lack of transparency, Republican State Representative Charlie Garen of Fort Worth says he filed a bill Friday that would abolish the Tarrant Appraisal District and instead have it run by the Texas Comptroller's Office.
The Tarrant Appraisal District should never be in the newspaper, and it's in the paper all the time, so there's a problem there.
He says appraisal district employees would remain and not lose their jobs. If the bill is approved by the legislature, it will be the first time the Texas Comptroller's Office takes over a local appraisal district. Representative Garen acknowledges it is still early in this process. Rich Diott, secretary and now presiding officer of the appraisal district, says it's too early in the process for him to decide whether he supports a state takeover. But it comes as the appraisal district board will meet Friday to consider whether Chief Appraiser Jeff Law should be disciplined or fired.
I do support changes in the way management has been done. Well, I've called for the termination of the chief appraiser publicly before.
Board members will also discuss who should decide how Catherine Weilman should be replaced. She resigned last month after the Keller City Council voted to recall her because of controversies of how the district was being run. Last week, Tarrant County commissioners did the same. And today, they discussed Garen's bill for the state takeover of the appraisal district.
But I don't know that I trust the state comptroller's office to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves.
County Judge Tim O'Hare said in a statement, the public trust in TAD must be restored. Tarrant County taxpayers deserve transparency. I will use the authority of this office to see to it they get it. We emailed Chief Appraiser Jeff Law seeking comment, but we didn't hear back. And here's more of our interview with Representative Garen discussing his bill and the potential fallout.
There's been a lot of controversy over the Tarrant Appraisal District in the last few months and years. And there seems to be a lack of transparency. The latest thing is a question over whether the chairman resigned or if she was recalled. And if she was recalled first by the city of Keller, which would allow the taxing entities to elect her replacement. If she resigns, then the board itself replaces her by appointing another board member. And so there's a controversy over that. There's been several controversies over the Open Meetings Act and discussions. And the chief appraiser and another deputy have been suspended without pay a couple of times. There just seems to be a disconnect between the Tarrant Appraisal District and its customers, which I'm a customer as a property owner, but then the taxing entities I don't know. It just, as I told a reporter yesterday, the Tarrant Appraisal District should never be in the newspaper, and it's in the paper all the time. So there's a problem there.
And because of that, you're saying that the customers, the residents, the property owners of Tarrant County are they being shortchanged?
Well, last August they were locked out, standing outside in the heat. If you know you're going to have a large crowd at the meeting, don't have it in a room that only holds 12 people. Get a bigger room.
And under your plan, the state comptroller's office would take over the district. And depending on the votes, it would be either immediately or September 1st.
Jack, on that though, we'll work around the different timelines that the appraisal district has as to when appraisals have to go out, when appraisal notices have to go out, when the taxing entities have to have their property value total so they can set their tax rates, and we'll work around any of those deadlines. The bill was filed on Friday, which was the last day to file bills. and it's basically a shell bill. We're going to fill the details in before it goes to committee.
So you're flexible on timing.
Very flexible on timing.
Have you had any chance to speak with anyone at the state comptroller's office about this? Do they do this for counties?
This will be their first time to do this. They do every 2 years. They recertify all the appraisals, so they understand the appraisal process. But this would be the first time. Now, currently, if you don't have a chief appraiser under current law, the comptroller can appoint the chief appraiser. So
Okay.
there's a lot of balls up in the air at this point. I'm not sure, where it's all going to come down. I visited with the county judge and a couple of the county commissioners, and they think that there's a problem there as well.
And as far as your discussions with local leaders, have you heard of any opposition to this?
Not yet.
And what about from your fellow state representatives and state senators?
I filed it on Friday. I think I talked to 2 members yesterday, and that was all, and they found it very interesting.
And what about employees of the district who do the work, not the board?
The comptroller, at least in my discussions, those people would still be there to do their job. They just they'd have different oversight, different management than what they currently have.
So the employees would keep their jobs and they would remain in them even if the state comptroller's office is running the operation.
That's my understanding with the comptroller, yes.
And if there were some kind of agreement, because there were letters sent by the Tarrant County DA warning the district about, coming up with their own replacements. If there were some kind of agreement reached that the taxing districts, the county, the cities, et cetera, could select the new board chair, would that be a remedy you could live with?
I don't know that it would completely solve all the problems, but it would be a start. I think that, there's obviously the bill was just filed Friday. It hadn't been referred to a committee yet. So there's still plenty of time to talk. And if we, when it goes to a hearing, obviously anyone that wants to come testify will be able to, and we can hash out a lot of differences between now and then and at a committee hearing.
From casino gambling to funding public education, State Representative Charlie Garen discusses some of his other legislation that he and other lawmakers have filed.
We've not had a lot of feedback that the bill has not been referred to committee yet. And I think that, once it's referred to committee, we'll be getting a lot more feedback, but it has not been referred yet.
Do you think it'll get to committee?
Oh, yes, it will. I mean, there's thousands of bills that have been filed, and each day they're referring, the speaker's office is referring to committees, several hundred bills a day. And I think, it'll be referred to committee sometime this week, I think.
And I noticed there was a second bill that you filed, a joint resolution filed similar to the initial one. What's the difference?
Well, it takes 2. You have to have a constitutional amendment, and that's the JR. I filed the second JR. We increased the number of destination resorts, and by 1 that would be open on an open bid, and it also includes some language to take care of the Indian tribes in Texas.
Okay. And then, and do you think that would have a greater likelihood of passing?
Well, that would be the one that we would go forward with at this point.
155?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a lot of discussion lately about how to reduce property taxes. There's bills to increase the homestead exemption. And then there are bills in the House to lower the property appraisal cap from 10 to 5%. That's a priority bill from the speaker. And I'm wondering, how do you think this is all going to sort out? I mean, and which camp are you in, or do you support?
Well, the House Bill 2, which is lowers the appraisal caps, and it lowers the appraisal caps for everybody. Currently, the appraisal cap is only on homesteads. The House Bill 2, which was, as I said, in committee yesterday, lowers the appraisal cap on all appraisals: business, multifamily, homesteads, vacant property, and lowers the appraisal cap on all of those. Also in House Bill 2, there's a buy down on the public school property taxes, which would lower your taxes immediately. Homestead exemption obviously lowers your taxes if you file the homestead exemption on where you live, so it only affects homeowners. And then your appraisal values eat away as appraisal goes up, it eats away at that homestead exemption. Homestead exemption is a good immediate fix, but it's only for people that live in a home that they own. It doesn't affect renters, apartment renters. It doesn't affect small businesses, large businesses, agriculture, anything like that.
And do you think it'll pass in the House and then ultimately in the Senate?
I can't answer that at this point. They had a good hearing yesterday. I think it will pass the House. I don't know if that bill will pass the Senate, as I think the homestead exemption obviously is a Senate bill and it will pass the Senate. And the two houses have to come together and come up with a single plan or two plans, but they have to, obviously they're going to have to pass both sides and be signed by the governor.
And I did want to ask you about a couple of other bills. One bill that you filed is also a joint resolution that would require the state to pay 50% of school district funding. So half would be from, I guess, property taxes, half would be from the state sales tax or other revenues, right? I mean, there couldn't be that would have to be a constant. Is that right?
That's correct. And when I was first elected, the state paid nearly 50%. It's dropped down into the 30s and it's in the high 30%. If the state were to pay 50% of the cost of public education, obviously everyone's property taxes, the school portion of their property taxes would go down. And that's not just homeowners, that's everybody's. And it has been referred to Ways and Means Committee, and hopefully we'll have a hearing pretty quickly on that. But I filed it before, and I've not been successful in passing it previously. Obviously, because it's a constitutional amendment, it will take 2/3 of both the House and the Senate
before it even gets on a ballot where people can vote on it.
That's correct.
And then my last question to you, and I appreciate your time, and that is the Senate yesterday, the state Senate approved a bill that would make it a felony to vote illegally. And part of that is that ignorance could no longer be used as a defense. So where are you on this? And do you think the House will pass that?
It was prior to last session when in special sessions, we passed an election reform bill, and that reduced it from a felony to a misdemeanor. I don't believe that was the intention of either chamber to reduce it. I think that there's a good chance that it will go back to a felony. Now, ignorance of the offense, I'm not certain that will stay in the House.
And that would require an amendment and a change, and would have to go back to the Senate. That portion is changed.
And then it would have to go to a conference committee to work out the differences, or the Senate could just accept what we send them. And but I expect on any major bills like that, there will be some disagreement between the two chambers, and the conference committees will work those out.
That's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. Thank you for joining us. You're watching CBS News Texas.